Why, hello YouTube. This is BalorMage again, and as is popularly requested, we have an updated path of building and build guide for Summon Holy Relic of Conviction. This is so far my all-time favorite build. This will be my league start. I'm going to be starting this as well. Mercs are going to work fantastic for us. Fantastic. The changes to Animate Guardian means it's still viable to leave an Animate Guardian in. However, there is also a new version of this that loses very, very little in the way of power, but completely gets rid of Spectres and Animate Guardians. And during the league, I'm going to experiment with a mix of them where I just don't have Spectres at all, but I do keep my Animate Guardian. So we'll see how that goes. But otherwise, for anyone who's never played this before, Holy Relic of Conviction is these little orbs we see on the screen that just are permanent minions that float around you. When you hit with an attack of any kind, any mob, anywhere, it will put a Nova effect damaging circle on whatever mob is nearest to it with no range limit. So nearest to it could be on you if there are mobs there, but if there are mobs not near you, the nearest to you might be off the edge of the screen, and that's where it'll hit. So it is an omnidirectional, infinite range thing so long as you have an attack to hit with, and as long as we've got enough attacks to trigger it. It does suffer from the same problem as cast on crypt builds and things like that, where you have to worry about trying to proc things and also getting the cooldown down to make it proc more often. To solve that, we're using Lancing Steel of Spraying. Lancing Steel of Spraying in the background, you can see all those little projectiles flying everywhere. That they auto-target everything in a pretty huge range. Anything in about a third of your screen, if you're just aiming in the correct general direction, it'll hit some stuff. It hits, it infinitely pierces, it all returns, it all gives life gain on hit. You become quite tanky, quite good coverage, quite good DPS. Downsides is path building does not know how much DPS we're doing. It never has. I've never been able to figure it out. It always feels significantly higher than whatever path of building says, but I can never really lock down the numbers. So either way, anyone who's ever played this has absolutely loved it, and we've got some updated versions. So let's jump into the path of building. So here is our path building. Most importantly, we do have all the leveling trees. So we do have a full list of progression. All of this is also covered in the written guide. Link for that will be in the description. We can level this way. I am covering all of our minion leveling. We do end up leveling with SRS until we have the minimum requirement to change over to Holy Relic. The minimum requirement to change over to Holy Relic is covered right here. 3 maps needed to swap. Don't worry about those because that's a passive tree thing. You basically need to make a weapon, a sword weapon with some amount of attack speed, that has a minion damage essence on it that you can craft trigger on. That's it. Joffrey's, which is practically free, and the 2 alt quality gems. If we have the 2 alt quality gems, which will be Holy Relic of Conviction, we will want to get that to 14 on quality as quick as possible, but just that Holy Relic of Conviction and the Lancing Steel of Spraying. Quick note, Lancing Steel of Spraying did not get touched. We've seen a lot of comments about, oh no, but Lancing Steel no longer will be able to return projectiles. That's the other Lancing ability. That's not this ability. This ability can still return, nothing changed on it. So it's fantastic, right? So we got all that covered. We've got leveling as SRS covered. I will note, if you don't mind a tiny respec, leveling this way as minions converting into Holy Relic when we get the 2 alt quality gems is slower and weaker than the more meta ways to level a witch. So if you're okay with doing something like rolling magma into the cremation and other ignite things and just doing a small respec when you get to maps. If you're that kind of person that wants to go that far, that fast, happy to spend a little bit of time respecing, that will be the better way to level. I hate that. I'd rather level slightly slower, but be as close to the end kind of end game build that I'm going to play. That's just who I am, so that's how I like it. So, differences between last time and this time with Spectres and Animate Guardian. So, last time there was a build guide for this. There was Spectres and Animate Guardian and also a bunch of auras. Since then, I made a few changes to get rid of Animate Guardian and Spectres entirely, as well as get rid of all of the auras. What is the benefit to this? The benefit to this was you can no longer have Spectres or Animate Guardians die, so you can do tier 17 maps, you can do Ubers, you can do all sorts of things. You are completely and utterly map mod immune. I've never read a map mod playing this build. The last map mod that was annoying for the old build was reduced effect of aura, because you could often get 104% reduced effect of aura, and here I was running like determination and maybe malevolence and like, you know, auras that like mattered, and so I got rid of all of them. However, with the most recent change, we're not necessarily sure that we actually want to get rid of the Animate Guardian. So while I did, and I have heavily tested this version right here, where instead of all of my auras and my Animate Guardian and my Spectres, I've been using Herald of Purity, which proc the same way, just from hitting things. And I've been using them with Feeding Strike, Cull, and Summon Phantasm to make sure I still had plenty of mobs around, mobs that could die that heal our minions, but also just enough to have 10 mobs all the time, so that it would work for giving us all our physical damage reduction. So that is one option on our two endgame options here. The other option, since they buffed Animate Guardian and it was the bigger problem rather than Spectres, I kept a version that has lost the auras so that we're completely aura immune, or completely map mod immune still, but put out our Raise Spectre and Animate Guardian back in again. So these are just two different setups right here that you could do either one. I'm personally probably going to go with the no Spectre and Animate Guardian version, personally, but I might be trying to work out when I can get a good, powerful Animate Guardian. I might pull out Culling Strike and Phantasm and just put in Animate Guardian and Meat Shield so that it can live, and I might keep the Herald of Purity, and we might just lose the Spectres since I don't want to risk replacing them. But now that we can res those Animate Guardians, it really depends on how it performs. So that's all going to be a testing thing in game. However, you might notice that unlike my other build guides, there is no min-max version. So the stuff that's right here, even though this says endgame with Spectre and Animate Guardian, does only say I've got 7.3 million DPS. But if you look over all my gear, it's all pretty reasonable stuff. Nothing here is outrageous. I haven't min-maxed this at all. I'm not looking at corruptions. Even my belt jewels are just life and poison res. That's it. So everything here is reasonable to get, with the exception of the Svalin, because we just don't know. But yeah, no corruptions, no nothing. The reason I didn't work real hard on a min-max version is because I'm going to be playing it, so I'm going to be going into the min-max version. So we'll get updates on that during the league. The last thing worth mentioning for anybody who's trying this for the first time or who isn't super confident is, while I am very confident that the Svalin will be our best shield, this could be anywhere from 2 div to 45 div. We do not know how common these craters are going to be. We know Settlers stayed, so we assume the Unique has stayed. We don't know how common they're going to be. I have no idea. So, in the meantime, the default shield that we fall back on is going to be the Surrender. However, it's also worth noting you could just craft any rare shield with heal on block. And if you feel like it, you could craft any rare shield that's a fossilized spirit shield with heal on block, because then you could get either minion damage or minion life or plus level of minions or just, you know, any other minion related stats. You could also use your shield to beef up all of your resistances and life pool and whatnot. The other thing worth noting is that at least early game, at least until you're up into beginning to juice tier 16s, you don't even need heal on block of any kind to begin with. Just slap on any shield and go. Right, so that is all I have for this. We have covered it in way more detail on the website, so written guide in the description if you have more questions. Otherwise, this is the one I will be playing. There will be updates. Oh, one more thing. I did even leave a little suggestion here. This is not ticked, right? But if you can find yourself a merc that has a Malevolence aura, that is a fantastic aura to bring. It is full DPS, about 13% more damage overall. It says 20% more damage over time. That's accurate, but some of our damage is hit damage. So either way, finding a merc that has Malevolence, that just on its own will be 13% more DPS. Not to mention anything else we put on it, anything from our merc video. There'll be plenty of ways to get far more damage in this because of the mercs. But for now, main priority number one, early maps, try and find yourself a merc that has Malevolence. Work your way up from there. Alright, those are our two setups. That is all I have. I hope everybody who tries this has an absolute fantastic time. Spoiler, you will. It's my favorite build. Alright, that is all, and I will see everybody next time. Bye-bye.